Let's talk about Google Ads 3-strike policy. No, we're not talking baseball. That'd be much more fun and much less impactful to your business. But we're talking about the 3-strike policy, where for some types of policy violations, Google gives you warning and strike 1 and strike 2 before strike 3 you're out. So I'm going to walk you through the policy. I'm going to walk you through some of the examples that we've helped businesses deal with when they've been going through this 3-strike policy, and hopefully answer some questions you might have if you are going through this issue yourself. And for context, my name is John from StubGroup. We are a Google Premier Partner and the #1 resource in the world for fixing Google suspensions and helping advertisers comply with Google policy. And everything I share with you today about Google's 3-strike policy comes from hands-on experience for myself and our team of working with advertisers to fix issues just like this. So first of all, let's talk about what the policy is. There are a subsection, a list of types of policy violations where Google will give you a warning and then some strikes. And Google lists what those are. I'm not going to read every single one of these. You can see them here on my screen, but they're things like enabling dishonest behavior, unapproved substances, firearms related things, explosives, tobacco, etc. And it's important to note that there are many types of policies where Google does not issue strikes or warnings. Google simply suspends you right away. And that's actually much more common in my experience than seeing strikes. We see way more immediate suspensions than strikes. But yes, strikes do happen, and they're much better than an immediate suspension because it does give you some time to rectify what Google thinks the problem is before you're completely suspended. What happens if you get a strike? Well, the first thing that happens is not actually a strike. It's what Google calls a warning. And so they send you this first violation as a warning. And they're saying, hey, if this continues to be a problem, then you'll get a strike. So they might say, here's a great example. So we had a client a while back. They sell ceremonial swords that are part of a uniform. These are not sharpened swords, so they don't qualify as weapons. And Google specifically says in their policy that ceremonial swords are not considered weapons. However, the system flagged our client's website because of words like sword and saber and things like that, and said, hey, here's your warning, a strike is going to come. And so in that situation, you want to take action on what Google says is the problem. And if you think that they made a mistake, you can make an appeal. Now that appeal will come up when they actually send you a strike. If they detect that you are continuing to violate this policy, they will send you that first strike. You'll get an email and you'll see a notification in the ad account, and your account will be on hold, temporary hold, for 3 days. That means that while your account isn't permanently suspended yet, for those 3 days, your ads will not serve. You will not get any traffic from those ads. And if you don't take action, that hold will continue. In other words, that hold will stay there until you actually do something. And there are 2 things you can do. You can disagree with Google and push back on them saying that you're violating a policy, or you can agree with Google and explain the actions you've taken to fix the problem. And so you'll see those options when you go to appeal, either from the button that's in the ad account or in the email. And you got to be really careful about how you approach this. So if you are violating the policy, don't dispute and tell Google you're not. Instead say, yep, you're right, and here's what we've done to fix it. However, if it's a situation where the AI, it seems like, is flagging you incorrectly, which happens all the time, then you can push back and say, hey, we actually disagree that we're violating this policy. Please dig into this further. Now, if you take the disagree approach, as far as a, hey, we fixed this approach, and then Google disagrees with your disagreeing, in other words, they don't accept that appeal, then you still have to go make changes, and you still have to go through the process of telling Google that you have made changes before that hold period will end. So that's how the first strike works. And then after that 3 days, your account will start serving ads again. Then we come into second strike territory. So if you violate the same policy again within 90 days of that first strike, then Google will send you the second strike. And this is your last and final notice. If you get another strike, you're suspended. So this is your last opportunity, kind of your last notice before a suspension occurs. And again, Google is saying, hey, you're still doing the same problematic thing as before. But in this case, your account will be put on hold for 7 days. So 4 more days than the previous time. And again, if you don't do anything, that temporary hold will stay. So you have to take action. You have to say, I disagree, Google, or hey, I agree, and here's the actions I took to fix the problem. And then after that, after after you've addressed that and gone through that, then the ads can start running again after that 7-day hold. And then again, if Google says you violate that same policy within 90 days of the second strike, they will send you that third strike and your account is suspended. Now, can you still fix a suspension after you've reached 3 strikes? Yes, it's certainly possible. It's hard. I mean, every suspension with Google is hard. It takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, and there's no, 100% guarantee of success. But it is possible to unsuspend ad accounts after they've been suspended through the 3 strikes process. But again, it's hard, and you do not want to get to that point. You really want to fix the issues, get Google on the same page with you after the warning, after the first strike, after the second strike. You don't want to get to that third strike. So that's kind of the overarching step-by-step guide to how it works. And if you disagree with what Google is saying, then it gets tricky because you're often working through Google's automated systems. A great example, that sword advertiser that I mentioned, we had to have a ton of back and forth with Google because even though they were allowed to sell what they were selling, the AI just wasn't, it just kept picking up on particular keywords and saying there was a problem. And so in that case, ultimately, we ended up having to get some messaging from Google to put on every single page on the website, very specifically saying these were ceremonial swords, not sharpened, so forth and so on. And we got that very specific messaging, and finally that was sufficient for Google's system to pick up on the fact that we weren't actually violating a policy, and we got out of the strike process. But it took a lot of time and was quite challenging. And so it's not a small thing, not a light thing, if you are facing a strike from Google. And if you are facing a strike or a suspension or just any policy issues in general, we'd love to help out, help you get through this time. If you want to reach out through StubGroup.com, we'd be happy to chat, see what's going on, and see how we can get these issues hopefully resolved for you.